welcome back to the You Never Would Have Known podcast. I'm your host. My name is Cassandra, and today we're talking about a really horrible case. But first, I want to add something to my last podcast. If you didn't listen to it, you totally should go back and listen to the first episode. But I just wanted to add in that right after I filmed that episode, somebody actually messaged me and sent me a couple of articles that I did not know of when I was recording. So these two articles, the first one, so I guess it's the state of Michigan is suing 3M and DuPont over the chemicals being in their water supply. So that's a new lawsuit going on. And there's also a lawsuit for DuPont with New Jersey firefighters. Apparently, the chemical is in the foam that the firefighters were using. And so they're suing over that now. So the case we talked about last week, it's still very relevant. It's still a big problem in everyone's lives. And so you really should, if you haven't listened to it, I would highly suggest you go back and listen to it. But we're not talking about the DuPonts today. We have something else that we're going to move on to. This case is also very important. I think that pretty much everybody knows this case. It's, I think, one of the probably biggest tragedies in America. Everybody feels sorrow for this little girl. So today we're going to be talking about JonBenet Ramsey. So we're going to get right on into it. So JonBenet Ramsey was a 6-year-old girl who lived in Boulder, Colorado. She was a beauty pageant star. She was only 6, but she'd won a lot of beauty pageants already. She was the child to John Ramsey. JonBenet's name is actually, in honor of her father, whose name is JonBenet. So her parents named her JonBenet. She has a mother named Patsy Ramsey, who back in her youth was also a pageant queen, and that's probably why they got JonBenet involved in pageants so young. And she also had an older brother named Burke, and at the time of this incident, he was 9 years old. They pretty much had, the perfect American life. John was the president of the company he worked for, Access Graphics. They lived in this beautiful mansion in Boulder, Colorado. John had just gotten his Christmas bonus. It's right around, the holiday season. And everything is just going great for this family. They're going to Christmas parties. They're spending time with their friends and family. And then on the morning of December 26, 1996, around 5 a.m., 911 gets this phone call.
What's going on there, ma'am? We have a kidnapping. Hi, explain to me what's going on, okay? There's a note left and our daughter's gone. A note was left and your daughter is gone? How old is your daughter?
She's gone. 6 years old.
How long ago was it?
I don't know. I took down the note. And my daughter's
Is it saying who took her?
What?
Is it saying who took her?
I don't know. There's a ransom note here.
It's a ransom note?
It says FBTC. Victory. Please.
Okay, what's your name? Are you
Kathy Ramsey, I'm the mother. Oh my God. Please.
Okay, I'm setting it off the phone, okay?
Please.
Do you know how long she's been gone?
No, I don't. Please, we just got out. Is you on here? Oh my God, please.
Okay, well,
Please, somebody.
I am, honey.
Please.
Take a deep breath,
Please,
okay?
hurry.
Kathy, 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 Kathy.
So as you can tell in that 911 call, That's Patsy Ramsey on the phone. She's very frantic. She says that her daughter is missing and that a note has been left. And at this point, they are waiting for police. They don't know where their daughter is, and all they have is this note. And I'm actually going to go ahead and read this note to you because it's probably one of the strangest parts of the case. The note's 3 pages long, and you'll see why that's very strange later. But I think that it's very important to read the note. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So the note says, Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills, and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and hence an earlier pickup of your daughter. Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial. The 2 gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking with anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned, we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions, and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around. So don't think killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It's up to you now, John. Victory, SBTC. So right after this 911 call, Patsy and John apparently start calling all of their friends and neighbors, like just tons of people. I guess that makes sense. Maybe you'd be thinking like, oh, maybe somebody saw someone take her. Maybe somebody saw her wander out of the house. Like, maybe someone saw something. So they're calling people, and people are coming over, and they're coming in the house, and they're tampering with the entire crime scene. So police get there, and the crime scene's basically already destroyed. People were cleaning the kitchen, which you'll see later is a huge deal. They're up in the bedrooms, they're everywhere. And police get there, and rather than doing an investigation themselves and searching the house for clues or evidence or something, they have John and his friends go search. So they're looking up and down the house. They're not finding anything because they're not professionals. They're just some random guys. But at this point, everything is tampered with. You heard in the letter, they said that they were going to be calling between 8 and 10. So that's what the police were depending on. And spoiler alert, they never called. And a little bit later, they tell the family to search the house one more time. John goes downstairs into his wine cellar, and there he finds his daughter, and he picks her up and once again completely destroys the crime scene. He takes the duct tape off her mouth, he carries her upstairs, and everything is out of sorts now. So he just completely ruined any bits of evidence that might have been there. So now they know that JonBenet is dead. And now, rather than a kidnapping by a foreign faction, they realize that they have to find a murderer, not a kidnapper. So there's quite a few suspects in this case. And like I mentioned earlier, and just a warning, they don't solve it. They still don't know who killed JonBenet Ramsey. But we're going to go through all the suspects and we're going to break down some of that evidence that I have already told you about, this letter and this 911 call. And we're really going to look at all of the people who could have been involved here. So first off, let's talk about the evidence that we already have gone over. First off is the 911 call. People say that Patsy sounds very frantic. Toward the end of that phone call, however, people aren't sure what she said. It sounds like she tried to hang the phone up and then she said something. People kind of argue about what she said here. I will admit it does kind of sound like she's saying, "What did you do?" But nobody knows what she said. Nobody can really tell what she said there. And sadly, that's just one of the many mysteries of this case. But there is a lot more there's a lot more going on in this letter. First off, the letter is 3 pages long, like I said earlier, which is odd because it's a lot longer than the average ransom note. But it's not only just odd because it's long, but it also was found to be written on paper found inside the house. So that would mean that somebody came into the house, killed JonBenet, and then sat down and wrote a 3-page ransom note. Which is very strange. It kind of shows that they wouldn't have been scared. They wouldn't have been afraid of being caught. They would have been, very calm and collected. And I guess it just felt like they were very in control of the situation. Something else that's kind of strange is that in the letter, they said that they wanted them to get $118,000, which just happens to be the exact amount of money that John got for his Christmas bonus. So it's all just a little bit weird. They did analyze the handwriting to see if it was similar enough to anyone in the families. It was decided that it was not John's handwriting and not Burke's handwriting, but it was inconclusive of whether or not it was Patsy's handwriting. They aren't sure if it was hers or not. And something else that's strange is that it's signed SBTC. And as far as I can tell, nobody knows what SBTC is. When I searched it, I did a lot of research on this specifically because I was very curious. And all that people can really think is that maybe it stands for Saved by the Cross, which is a religious term that people use. So the letter and the 911 call, there's a lot going on there, but there's also a lot of other evidence, and we're going to get into that. So some other important evidence to think about is that JonBenet did have some DNA that was found in her underwear. They ran this DNA against a database and they were not able to match it with anyone. So that's kind of up in the air. Another thing is that her autopsy, they did an autopsy of her, obviously, and it was found that she had been killed by strangulation and skull fracture. The official cause of death was asphyxia with cerebral trauma. She was strangled with a garrote, which was made from nylon cord and a paintbrush from her mom's paint kit. Basically, this is kind of gruesome, but the way it worked is that what they would have to do is twist the paintbrush, and as they twisted, the cord would become tighter around her neck and it would strangle her. In the autopsy, they also found that she had pineapple in her stomach. this is kind of where them cleaning the kitchen was a huge no-no because they say that there was a bowl of pineapple on the kitchen table with a spoon in it. And John and Patsy both say that they didn't get this for her, so they're not sure who did. But they did find Burke's fingerprints on the bowl. So that's really all the evidence they have. There isn't really much more here. So I guess now we're going to get into the different suspects and who could have committed this horrible crime. So the first suspect is obviously JonBenet's parents, John and Patsy. There's a lot of reasons for this. And not even just John and Patsy, but also Burke. Burke was known to be aggressive and violent, especially toward his sister. There were the fingerprints on the bowl. The handwriting was very similar to Patsy's. The paper was from inside the house. There's just kind of a lot of things that point toward it being, John or Patsy, but especially Burke. It kind of lines up in a way that makes Burke look pretty guilty. Burke did a Dr. Phil interview a couple years back, and people thought it was weird because he was smiling and he seemed happy. But when I watch it, I don't know if any of you have watched it, but when I watch it, he just seems like he's really awkward and anxious. And I think that if I was on a show watched by millions of people speaking about the murder of my sister that I'd been blamed for since I was 9 years old, I think that I would be a little bit anxious too. So, I mean, I can't really blame him for his anxiety there. But I don't want to harp on the parents and Burke for too long because here's the thing. If you're listening to this, I'm sure that you've heard a million other videos about JonBenet Ramsey and how her parents did it. But there are so many other suspects it could have been. And I find it just a little bit disrespectful that people continue to blame the family because just quite honestly, there's so much evidence pointing to other people. There's people that flat out admitted to murdering JonBenet, and they still are saying it had to be Burke. So if you want more information on why the family could have done it, I mean, there's tons of it out there, but we're going to move on because I think that that's what's respectful to do in this case. So our first suspect is a man named Gary Olivia. Gary Olivia was arrested for child pornography charges. And when the police found him, they checked his backpack and they found a photo of JonBenet in his backpack. And they asked him why he had this photo of JonBenet. And he told the police that he wanted to make a shrine for her because he loved her. And that's a whole situation there. Also, right after the murders, just a couple days, he called one of his friends and told his friend that he had hurt a little girl. And he was telling his friend how sad he was and he had hurt her and he didn't mean to hurt her. And they have never found another little girl that was harmed that night in Colorado. JonBenet is the only little girl that had been hurt that night. And Gary Olivia also said in the phone call that this was in Colorado where he hurt this little girl. And so it kind of would have to be JonBenet. There was not another little girl that they have found that was harmed that night. Gary Olivia also tried to kill his own mother with the same garrote method that JonBenet was killed with. So that's pretty interesting. However, Gary Olivia was never arrested for this or anything because the DNA did not match Gary Olivia. They could not match it to him. Our next suspect is a man named Bill McReynolds. So Bill McReynolds has a lot going on. He had a daughter who disappeared 20 years, almost exactly to the date, 20 years before JonBenet was killed. His wife was a writer, and she wrote a play about a young girl getting murdered and being hidden in a basement. Um, so that's a whole situation. He played Santa. He would dress up as Santa for the Christmas parties around town. And right before her death, JonBenet told a friend's mom that she was going to get a surprise from Santa after Christmas, which is right when JonBenet was murdered. And Bill McReynolds also said that he felt very close to JonBenet. He said that he had never been given a gift before while playing Santa, and that JonBenet had given him a gift. She gave him a little vial of glitter. And he told his wife that when he died, he wanted the glitter from the vial mixed in with his ashes so that it would always be with him. There's a lot going on there. But we still have not gotten to the suspect who admitted to the murder. So the person who admitted to doing this murder is a man named John Mark Carr. John Mark Carr, he was a teacher in Thailand, and he admitted to killing JonBenet. He was emailing a professor about the case, and he admitted that he killed her. He was emailing him using very similar wording to the ransom note, and he told them that he was in love with her and that he hit her with a flashlight and killed her. He told them that he didn't want her to die in that basement that night, and he felt so guilty that she never made it out. The government did actually go and get him. He was hiding. He lived in Thailand. He was hiding there to avoid child pornography charges. And, but the DNA did not match him. So they think that he kind of just convinced himself that he killed her. And they decided that he had not done it. So that's really all the suspects, but we do have just another interesting bit of information. So during all of these hearings, a doctor named Dr. Henry Lee, who is kind of an expert in his field, said that it's possible that the DNA is not from the killer at all, but possibly from the manufacturing process. And so what Dr. Henry Lee did in the trial was he went and got a brand new pack of underwear, and he was able to get DNA off of the brand new underwear from the manufacturing process. So that just showed that the DNA wasn't really valid, and that any of these people now, the parents, Burke, John Mark Carr, Gary Olivia, Bill McReynolds, any of them could be the killer, even though the DNA found did not match them. And the sad part about this case is that I don't have any more information about you. No one was ever arrested in the death of JonBenet Ramsey. And that's just how it probably will be forever. It kind of just, I think this is an important case because it really shows the importance of, not tampering with evidence, with good police work. There was a lot to learn from this case, and I'm sure that people really did learn from it. But sadly, there never was any justice for JonBenet, and I think it's very sad, but that's just what happened here, unfortunately. And even though it's on a sad note, it's time to wrap up today's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you haven't listened to my first episode about the DuPonts, I would highly urge you to go do that because it has a lot of very important information that you need to know. Thank you so much again for listening to the You Never Would Have Known podcast, and I hope you'll tune in next time. Bye, guys. Have a great day. Here's a little end of episode secret for you guys. If you made it this far, go follow the show's Instagram at You Never Would Have Known, and every day I'll be posting a hint about what next episode will be. I hope you're ready.